And now, broadcasting from the top of the skyscraper that is the Markham Hall on the Rogers State University campus in Claremore, it's Green Country's most exciting radio show, Free Association. And now, here is the Fort Smith Fireball, your champion of chicken, and your deluxe dueling DJ, Mark Lane.
It is Free Association on 91.3 FM. I'm Mark Lane, and on this overcast sky, out comes the true alternative music to help brighten your day. We're having a little trouble with the internet and the emails today, so don't bother to send your request in via email, but we still encourage requests through our request line at 343-7913. All right, on today's show, we'll go ahead and we'll look at the headlines, see what's going on in the world. I'll talk about my trip I had over the weekend to conclude spring break, where I went up to Louisville, Kentucky, for the Blonde's wedding. We'll be talking about that and more right here on Free Association. For now, here's local natives with camera talk right here on your only choice for true alternative music, 91.3 FM. The next case going on here on Free Association is I'm going to talk about my trip to Louisville over the weekend. So before we talk about it at all on the show, I got to set the cast of characters, I got to set the stage so we know what we're talking about. I can do it in 45 seconds or less here. All right, so back in 2003 when I was 15, I met the brunette and her family. She had an older sister, the blonde. She lived in Arkansas with only her mother, Mrs. S, and her parents were divorced with the father, living up in Louisville. Sometime in 2005, the three of them go to Cincinnati. The one goes down to Arkansas, and so I thought it was a bad trade, in my opinion. I thought, well, wait, this is like Roy Williams for a first and a third. I mean, how come I wasn't consulted on this? So anyway, that's the cast of characters. The blonde got married over this past weekend. The brunette's living up there. So is Mrs. S. And I rode with the one up to Louisville for the wedding. So we'll be talking about some of the stories that occurred on that trip, all right here on Free Association. The request line has been ringing. People have wanted me to answer the phone. Yeah, my assistants have got it. Thanks. Praise be to them. All right. After the break, Surfer Blood with Fast Jabroni. But all this after the weather, right here on Free Association. That was Spoon with His Love Forever right here on Free Association, and I'm Mark Lane. And it sure took forever to get together with the one to leave to go to Louisville for the wedding over the weekend. Yes, we're going to be talking about that on this edition of Free Association. We're continuing the stories. So who's the one? The one is the blonde and the brunette's dad. Why do I call him that? Because he passes such judgment on the suitors of his daughters that it's, that's the nickname he should have, is the one. So it's stuck. All right, so anyway, he lives back in Fort Smith. I live here in Claremore, and so I knew he'd be driving, so I said, well, why don't we drive together? He said, no, why don't you ride with me? So the deal was I was supposed to meet with him in Fort Smith at 6 a.m. on Thursday to drive up there. So then I get a call about 1 a.m. the night before, and he says, I got some stuff to take care of. Let's make it 8 a.m. All right, so then he calls me at 6 a.m. next day, and he says, no, things are happening at work. Let's make it 11 a.m. All right, so then I drive back to Fort Smith anyway, visit with my folks before I go on the trip. And then 11 a.m. rolls around. He's still got stuff to take care of. Anyway, the long and short of it is we get on the road at 2 p.m. And, yeah, that was a very long 10-and-a-half-hour trip at that point. So, yeah. Anyway, the request line is still open at 343-7913. Don't say goodbye. Say hello to Mark Lane and Free Association. That was Built to Spill with Hindsight. Before that, we had Modest Mouse with History Sticks to Your Heels. And then before that, we had Field Music with Each Time is a New Time right here on 91.3 FM. So, anyway, I was in Sin City, Cincinnati, Ohio. on the night of the rehearsal of Friday night because I wasn't in the wedding. Why should I be there? So I decided to go up to Cincinnati and hang out with my friend the Greaser. That's who we'll call this friend up in Cincinnati, the Greaser, instead of going down there to the rehearsal dinner. So anyway, I get a text in the middle of dinner, and it's from Mrs. S, and it says, "Mark, you're doing the readings. The blonde will send them to you later tonight. No questions, no pleases, just here's the deal, and then you're going to do it." Okay, well, I had no problem with it, so I did it anyway. But the one that night, because we were staying in the same hotel room, the one and I were like bunkmates or whatever, he was teasing me about it, saying, yeah, everybody, all 100 people in that auditorium are going to be thinking, I would hate to be that guy up there. Oh, I'm so glad I don't have his job. So he's making me nervous. The guy who has tremendous stage presence is starting to get nervous over this. So, well, what scriptures did they pick? Well, the ones that they picked. Love is patient. Love is kind. Out of 1 Corinthians 13. Goes shopping with you on Sunday afternoon instead of watching the NFL game of the week. Love lets you take all the money out of the checking account for shoes. That verse. It's very close to a verse that I would think be apropos to the equality crowd here, because that's what Mrs. S and that family is the equality crowd. To them, their idea of equality between the sexes means that the man gets hit with a whip and has a millstone around his neck. But anyway, that's beside the point. I think this passage from Corinthians would work well for them. I should have read this out loud at the ceremony during the wedding. Women should be silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be subordinate, as the law says. If there is anything they desire to know, let them ask their husbands at home. Oh, I wonder how that would have gone over with the equality crowd. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you would have got the fairness doctrine all right. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellent and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about it. Think about these things. I think Paul would have rather said, if there's any true alternative music, listen on these things. And you can listen in on any true alternative music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because it's RSU radio broadcast 24 hours a day. And the Apostle Paul also would have said, if we would have had RSU radio back then and Facebook, he just said, oh, Caiaphas wants to be my friend here. He would have been a friend of RSU Radio on Facebook, MySpace, and Twitter. Hit them up, facebook.com, myspace.com, twitter.com. Do the / and do the RSU Radio. And fan up today. Oh, so much to say in one little break. All right, coming up after the weather, we have Gorillas with Stylo again, right here on Free Association, or whatever you want, at 343-7913. As I was hanging out with the one, we watched a Ron White comedy special or whatever in the hotel room, and each time during about every 15 minutes during the jokes, he'd say, I've been saying that stuff for years, the one would say about Ron White's material. And it got me to thinking, how many people out there truly are as funny as Ron White, or better than Mark Lane, or whatever, but they never had their chance or whatever? Did they really not ever have their chance, or did they not ever look for their chance? I didn't mean to do a plug, but I'll do it now. Rogers State University has one of the best communications degrees in the area. Why don't you take advantage of it? Why don't you take advantage of RSU Radio and the great radio TV broadcasting degree that we have here at RSU? It's better to have done something and failed than to not have done something and said, oh, I should have. Early enrollment is next Monday, March the 29th. Why don't you try that out? Don't be the next one that sits around at home and says, oh, that they stole my material or whatever. Take your material and steal my microphone. That's all. Here's the Herbalizer with the next spot right here on Free Association. 343-7913 is the request line. All right. Sorry about that.